Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If I had known that I was going to get here and see Jerry Falwell 34 pounds lighter and me 34 pounds heavier, I don't think I would have come here. But anyway, it is a great, great pleasure to be here with Jerry and Becky, Dr. Godwin. It is a great honor to be here. I love Liberty University. Those of you who are old enough to remember the Rolling Stones and who remember a wonderful song by the Rolling Stones called "Gimme Shelter" will know the feeling I had last night. For some reason, I was looking out the window of my hotel room at a big, big sign on a building saying Liberty University, and I said to my wife, I feel as if we're sheltered, like in "Gimme Shelter" by the Rolling Stones. And my wife said to me, sleep well knowing that you are so blessed as to be near Liberty University, and that is how I feel. And this morning, I got up and I was awakened actually before my alarm clock rang by a call from my sister. My sister is 3 years older than I am, but looks a lot younger because she hasn't worked since 1963. And she travels all over the world. She was calling me from Rome. She said, I'm here in Rome, and she doesn't care what time it is for me. But anyway, and she said, I'm going to go shopping on the Via Condati this morning. I'm going to go walk around the Spanish Steps. I'm going to go to a museum, and then I'm going to have lunch at such and such a restaurant that she read about in the New York Times. And then I'm going to go work out at the gym, and then I'm going to go have a massage or something at the gym, and then we're going to have dinner at some other fancy restaurant, she and her husband. What are you going to do today, Benji? By which she meant, what are you going to do, my fat, worthless blob of a brother? And I said to her, you know what I'm going to do today, Rachel? I just looked out the window of my Hilton Garden Inn in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I saw a construction truck with an American flag on it, and I realized that one more day I was privileged to wake up in the United States of America, and I'm going to get on my knees and thank God for being here. And that's how I'm going to spend my morning. Now, I know we all have places to go today, so I'm going to make this speech short and sweet. This is a country whose greatness cannot be measured. It is an incredible country. Even in my lifetime, we have made fantastic, incredible progress in this country since I was born in November of 1944. We have made incredible progress in civil rights. This country is a totally different country from the segregated, racially restricted country it was in when I was born in 1944. The prosperity in this country, even though we've been through a very bad last 10 years and particularly bad last 4 years, has been phenomenal. The incredible wealth of this country is just beyond belief. The fact that the ordinary person like me, not a superstar of discipline like Jerry or like Becky, has to worry more about too much food than too little food is proof of that. We have legal protection beyond what anyone could have imagined in 1944. We have had an amazing run. This world has had nuclear weapons on both sides of the ideological divide now since 1949, and yet there has been no nuclear war. That has been an achievement beyond measure. Everyone my age, and there are very few of us in this room, possibly Dr. Godwin might be 10 years younger, but I'm not sure, knows that many of us grew up expecting to be vaporized by nuclear bombs at any time. God's blessing has been upon mankind, and we have not seen that happen. We have had the progress, I think. I know I'm in Lynchburg, and I say this with a full heart. I just came here from Greenville, South Carolina. The progress, I love South Carolina. Anyway, we have made more progress, I believe, in the southeastern United States than anywhere else in this country. And any one of the people in Hollywood who makes movies about the South and who thinks it's still run by the Ku Klux Klan has had his head buried in a very deep hole for a very long time, because the South is where the real progress in this country in human rights has been made. But we do have great problems in this country. We have an economic crisis, which is ongoing, caused by gross misconduct on Wall Street and very, very poor government regulation. And this was done by both the Republicans and the Democrats. Please, please, please don't let any politician tell you that this is the fault of any one party. Both parties had an enormous hand in it. And it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to me to see one of the candidates say that the problems were all caused by the previous incumbent in the office, when he has now taken into his administration many of those same people in positions of top authority in the economic realm. But we're recovering little by little. $850 billion at a time. We're recovering little by little, and we will continue to recover. But we're not going to recover, as far as I can tell, by the history of the New Deal and the Great Depression and the history of this very, very serious correction. We're not going to recover by government writing a huge check. You know, it's interesting. This morning I saw President Obama when he was a candidate. Thank you. I beg your pardon. When he was a candidate in 2008, saying we've had a lot of spending and has put on a credit card of the Bank of China, and he said, so we're going to stop doing that. Well, now $8 trillion in debt later, or $7.5 trillion in debt later, we're still doing it. We've got to stop. We're not going to recover by writing checks and then sending them, asking that we be given debit cards from the Bank of China. That's not going to happen. We're going to recover by small business, by entrepreneurship, by the skills that you learn here at Liberty University, by one job at a time, one small business at a time, one person with a good idea at a time. I recently spoke at a gathering called Young Presidents in Dallas, Texas, and these people are amazing people, and Dallas is an amazingly vibrant town. And these people have business ideas and jobs, and they're creating businesses. The man I spoke to who impressed me most had a business where he's treating, transporting, and then disposing of water used in fracking, which is going to make America the leading energy producer in the world within just a very short time. And he's doubling his employees every month. That's how the recession is going to end. It's going to end one job at a time, one small business at a time, one genius or doesn't have to be a genius. The magic sauce, the secret sauce that you no longer get in your cheeseburgers, Jerry. The secret sauce is not genius. The secret sauce is hard work. But we don't need government subsidies. We don't need huge government stimulus. We need government to get out of the way. That's what we need. But we will recover. We will recover. There's never been a depression that lasted forever, and there's not going to be this time. But we face much more than an economic crisis. We face a moral crisis in this country, and the real issue in this country right now is how we're going to deal with the moral crises. And I'm just going to list a few of them. One, debt. We have an enormous debt. This debt is now so large that we're going to have to default on it one way or the other. We're going to have to default either by just at some point saying we can't pay it, or else by defaulting on the route of inflation and inflating our way out. And that means for you young people in the audience, you're going to see someday the $50 Big Mac. You think it's impossible. I know you think it's totally impossible. It's going to happen by the time you're my age. I hope you live that long. Anyway, this debt is just overwhelming. It is criminal to have imposed this much debt on our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. You cannot imagine how fast it's going to keep compounding unless we do something drastic to stop it. Second, moral crisis, work. Too many people in this country won't work. We have roughly, very, very roughly, this is a very rough number, 12 million people out of work. That's 22 million if you count those who are looking for full-time work and can't get it. But we have roughly 12 million out of work. But we also have roughly 5 million unfilled jobs that cannot get filled because we don't have workers willing to do the work or willing to train themselves to do the work. If we could fill those 5 million jobs overnight, we would immediately end the recession. But too many people in this country do not want to work. They don't have the skills, and they don't have the mental setup to work. They just are not used to work. And they therefore become dependent on others who are working, and they become a burden to those who do work and to the whole society. And it's immoral. It is simply immoral not to work. Work is part of man's destiny. It doesn't have to be work at a job, but work as a homemaker, work in some form is immoral. It is immoral not to work, and it's immoral not to work on Wall Street by having scams instead of doing honest work. And that's just as immoral as applying for a welfare check when you don't really need it, or what I see a lot of out in LA, an astonishing amount of applying for disability, and people who are able to work out at the gym for 2 hours a day somehow, but are too disabled to go to work and get a check from the government. See, another thing, which probably doesn't get talked about much here at Liberty, but it should be, pornography on the internet. This is just an astonishing crime against mankind. It degrades human relation, degrades women, degrades love, degrades everything it touches. Now, there are some people in this country who talk a lot about the war on women. And the war on women, it seems to me, the real war on women takes many forms. One of them is to degrade them and dehumanize them with pornography. This is a serious issue in this country. It isn't much talked about, but it is a serious issue. I don't know how you solve it because it's an issue involving free speech, but somehow the idea that it is allowed to put this kind of trash and this kind of dehumanizing garbage on the internet every day so that any child can see it is just disgusting. Next, the collapse of the family. We have an amazing situation here with the family collapsing in America. When I was a child, a tiny percentage, maybe 5 or 6% of children in this country were born out of wedlock. Now the number is above 80% for African Americans. It's above 50% for Hispanics. It is approaching 50% for Caucasian women. This is a catastrophic situation for communities and for children. The data is absolutely clear-cut, could not be more clear-cut, that the family with the nuclear family, mother and father, is essential for the development of the child. Now, obviously, there are going to be some exceptions, but the basic concept laid down in all historical texts, including the Bible, that there should be a mother and a father in the family, that is basic. And when you take that away, there's going to be some stunting of the human personality. Now, as I say, obviously there will be some exceptions. There will be some people who are very, very talented and have great abilities and will be able to triumph over that. But in general, the problem is overwhelming. We have another problem. And by the way, I don't understand how that happens. I really do not understand how it happens that a man can impregnate a woman and just leave her. I just cannot understand that level of indiscipline and irresponsibility. It's just not something that would have been tolerated when I was a child, and why it's tolerated now, I'm not sure, but it is an ongoing disgrace. And speaking of ongoing disgraces, I think I can speak about this here at Liberty because we don't have a problem with this here at Liberty. The collapse of education. This has been an amazing phenomenon. The data is clear-cut. Among the major industrial countries, the United States of America, which used to consistently rate first in mathematics and science, is now consistently either last or very close to last. The SATs consistently go down. They're constantly reworking them to make them easier, to make it seem as if they're doing better. It isn't working. The American College Testing Service reports that only 1/4 of high school seniors are capable of doing C-level work in college, and as many of you know, C stands for chronic. And the SATs have recently reported, you're pretending like you don't know what that is. The SATs are telling us that high school seniors know more about American history and American and English literature than college seniors. This is a disgrace. This is an American a disgrace to the United States of America. I saw it recently. I have a long story that I've told Jerry and Becky many times about it, but I won't tell you that long story. But just recently I was talking to some high school teachers. One of them came up to me with a story. He said he'd been trying to tell his students about the origins of World War II. And he tried to talk to them about Pearl Harbor, and they all looked at him blankly. And so finally he said to them, well, do you know what Pearl Harbor was? And one of them said, is it a jewelry store at the Huntington Beach Mall? No, it's not a jewelry store. It was a big giant attack on the United States by Japan that started World War II for the United States of America. We have another real problem, serious problem in the United States of America's educational system. We don't allow any real inquiry about science. I saw this firsthand when we made the movie Expelled. We ran into a buzzsaw. We asked some very obvious questions. If Darwinism explains where life came from, where did life originate? If it didn't originate by intelligent design, by the hand of the creator, where did it come from? Well, it might have started from crystals, from little dust on the backs of crystals. Well, how would that happen? Well, we're not sure, but it might have happened on the backs of crystals. I asked Richard Dawkins, probably the most famous atheist Darwinist in the world, how did life on Earth originate if not by divine plan and divine hand and creation? And he said, well, maybe people from outer space came and seeded the Earth with life. Well, where did they come from? Well, not sure, but maybe people from outer space. I said in the movie, so Richard Dawkins, the most famous atheist in the world probably, says that people from outer space created life on Earth, but he refuses to believe that an intelligent, loving God could have created life in the world. Well, this is when we made this movie, and then by the way, we asked other questions, like we asked if it all happened by accident, where did the laws of gravity come from? How can you get a law of gravity by accident? How can you get the laws of thermodynamics by accident? How can you get the laws of motion by accident? How can that happen? How can you get a series of physical laws that govern the universe by accident? No one's allowed to answer the question. And if you are a university professor at someplace other than Liberty, and if you even ask the question, you get fired. You don't just get politely asked to reconsider, you get fired. That's not science. No real scientific inquiry is allowed on this basic subject. If you even start to come close at most universities, or even high schools, to suggesting that there was an intelligent design and an intelligent creator, you lose your job. That is not where great education comes from. Great education comes from being unafraid to ask questions, not from being not allowed to ask questions. This applies to many subjects. I'm not going to mention them all because there are too many of them. We have another issue, which to me is issue number one in this whole country. We have an amazing situation in this country, really interesting situation. If there's a little town somewhere and a small boy falls down a well, we go to great lengths to save him. We turn out the fire department, we turn out helicopters, we turn out the National Guard. We'll go to amazing lengths to save that little boy. But we purposely kill 1 million of our most innocent human beings every year. And then we brag about it and say that it's a great achievement and call it a woman's right to choose. No woman, no man has the right to choose to kill another innocent human being. And in this country, in this great country, we have had an astonishing, horrifying disgrace, the disgrace of human slavery. That was absolutely abhorrent, disgusting, revolting, a crime against humanity. But now we have another one. We have mass murder, a Holocaust going on, and we call it a woman's right to choose. We're killing, as I say, roughly, the number can vary each year, but roughly 1 million a year of the most innocent beings among us who have done nothing wrong whatsoever, and we're killing them on a horrific scale, and we brag about its progress. And if someone questions it and says these are innocent human beings, why are you killing them? That person is considered a monster. Look, a long time ago, when I was at Yale, long time ago, I was totally ignorant about this whole subject. To me, when the pro-abortionists said, it's not a human being, it's just a little mass of tissue, that's nonsense. I'm not allowed to curse from the stadium. Becky told me that I'd have my hand slapped very hard if I did, but you know what that is. You know what kind of nonsense that is. It's not just a mass of tissue. It's a human being. It's a human being. And every year in this country, we kill roughly 250,000 baby girls in sex selection abortions. And the abortionists say, we are conducting a war on women. We are trying to save those women's lives. We're not conducting a war on women. We're trying to save their lives. The war on women is the war of killing them in sex selection abortions, degrading women in pornography, knocking them up and leaving them with babies and no means of support except welfare or crime. That's the war on women. What does it all come down to? Well, it comes down to something, it seems to me, pretty simple. Behaving decently towards our fellow human beings as God commands us to do. And as it all comes down to doing a certain kind of work to make a better world and work to be better friends and neighbors and family members and parents and children. Very important, your parents have feelings too. Better children, and to follow God's word for us to love and honor God and obey his commands to love one another. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Part of our work today is to do it, and part of our work as responsible citizens is to vote. We're going to do it by work. We're going to do it because we're going to ask God to work for us. But we can have it in our hearts, and we must have it in our hearts, that he can only do that kind of work for us if we realize that here on earth, God's work is our work. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd be happy to take
Ben would like to take a few questions, so if anybody's got anything they want to... Do we have a microphone? Right over here. I'll see it. Okay, anybody brave enough to ask a question? Here's your chance. All right.
Just because of the current inflation of the dollar spends right now about 45 cents what it would normally have spent. How do you propose we solve the inflation?
We haven't seen anything in the way of inflation compared to what it's going to be. I mean, we've had an astonishing situation in this country. To fight the recession, the Federal Reserve has created paper money on a scale that's never been seen before in the history of mankind. We had roughly $5 trillion in circulation when Mr. Bush left office. We now have something like $11 trillion in circulation. When the velocity of that money starts picking up, the inflation is going to be fantastic. I'll just tell you, generally speaking, money creation creates inflation. There's going to be a fantastic, breathtaking inflation sometime in your lifetime, young man. Be prepared. Yes, sir.
What do you think of auditing the Federal Reserve?
I love the Federal Reserve, but I wish they had people in it who are more concerned about inflation and less concerned about pleasing the president. Yes.
Can you say Bueller?
Okay, I'm going to Adams, Adamley, Adamowski, Bueller, Fry. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
In your opinion, what would be the easiest evidence to put out to the abortionist crowd for the humanhood or personhood of the unborn?
Just any kind of photo or X-ray or sonogram of a baby inside a woman. That's data that babies in utero can hear music, can react to music, can react to pain. That's a baby. And let me just tell you something. I'm not telling you how to vote. You guys have to decide how to vote yourselves. That's a free country and this is a free society. But several years ago, when Mr. Bush was president, there was a bill in the Senate to ban what is called partial birth abortion, which is a baby has already been mostly out of the birth canal and yet is killed by the abortionist. And there was a bill to ban that. Only one senator voted to kill that bill. Can you guess who it was? From Illinois. Yes.
In the scientific community, there's, of course, that big hush when it comes down to the questions of Darwinism. What do you say to a future scientist that, I'm going to finish with a creation studies minor, what kind of support, what kind of guide would you give me?
What the Darwinists always say is that intelligent design isn't science because you can't replicate it, you can't prove it, you can't duplicate the research. And what I always say is neither can you. Show us where life began. Show us where the laws of physics came from. Show us how a cell has 250,000 little tiny moving parts that can repair each other and replicate themselves. Show us how that happens. Look, we have just as much evidence in the Bible of where creation and where life came from as they do in all their laboratories. We have more. Yes. Sir.
Mr. Stein,
Sir.
You're one of the few people I've met in my life who has an interest in both government and entertainment. And as a pre-law and cinematic arts double major, I was wondering if you had any words of wisdom.
If you're going to come out to Hollywood, bring a lot of money. Because it's going to take you a while to get a job, and if you're going to be a lawyer, be prepared for a long wait to get a job. But be patient, keep at it, and eventually you'll break through. Sir.
Yes, as you're well aware, the total credit market debt as a percentage of the gross domestic product has been skyrocketing since the early 1980s. What implication do you see that this has on the decline? On the separation of the increasing wealth inequality of the middle class, and also
I don't think it has anything to do with the increasing wealth inequality of the middle class. I think the increasing wealth inequality of the middle class has to do largely with the fact that many members of the middle class do not have useful skills and also do not save. I mean, there's been very, very, very little data connecting anything done on Wall Street with wealth inequality, and what it's mostly correlated with is declining education and declining willingness to work and save.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just had to say Bueller, Bueller, Bueller!
Okay, well, now you've said it and you're on your way. Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Stein, could I ask you your personal opinion on gay marriage and that issue as the country moves forward?
I think it should be decided on a state-by-state basis and not by the federal government. Okay. All right, well then in that case, I'll leave you to your own devices. God bless you, and let's all imitate the example of our fine Jerry Falwell and not to eat so many burgers and fries.
Thank you, Ben. All right, we're going to dismiss a little early to give you time to get to the airport, if that's what y'all are going to do. Great questions, except for one, but thank you and have a great day.